Hey guys, welcome to the Baby Sleep Magic podcast. My name is Chantal, and today's episode I'm going to be talking a little bit about naps on the go. Now, I have previously done a podcast on this, but it did only go for 2 minutes. Seems to be such a big problem out there for a lot of parents. I thought I would elaborate and give you a little bit more advice on how to manage naps on the go and being out and about with your bub. So this is something I do get asked quite often, and the number one question is, how do I get my baby to fall asleep whilst out and about and have a good nap on the go? Well, look, to be honest, the answer is you don't. It can be quite difficult. And that's why I thought I'd elaborate a little bit more and go into a little bit more detail. Look, in most cases, once Bubba's reach the age of 3 months and are beyond the age of 3 months, most babies will find it quite difficult to nap on the go. But that's not to say it can't happen. It can happen. It's able to happen. But it's how you go about it, which is where it's going to be successful or not. Whether you've got older children and you've got to do school drop-off, school pick-up, whether or not you've got appointments you've got to go to, whether or not you just want to go out, that is life and life goes on. So we do need to, at times manage naps on the go. That's just the way it's got to be. So look, in the instance that you have your little one and you are out at the shops and you want your little one to fall asleep in the pram, the number one key here is to ensure your little one isn't strapped in the pram and laying down too soon. So let's say hypothetically you get to the shops at 9 a.m. and your little one is due for a nap around 9:30 according to their wake window. Now, what you don't want to do is when you get to the shops at 9 a.m. is pop them in the pram and have them laying down too early. Because what's going to happen around 9:30 when they're due for that nap, they're going to really fuss because they've been in that pram for already half an hour and they're really going to start protesting because they're over it. They're done. Their moment is gone, especially if they're being laying down. And this even goes for quite younger babies as well. Once you do get to the shops, if that's where you are, have your baby sitting upright. Obviously strapped in, sitting upright and looking around, being really interactive, stimulated, busy looking, because that's what you want them to do. You want them to take in all that information. You want them to be quite busy, not necessarily being out of the pram, walking around in some cases, but yeah, you just don't want them to be laying down at this point. So even if you need to give them some snacks or a bottle or some milk or whatever it might need to be, you don't want to cue their body for a nap too soon. At that particular time when it is ready for their nap, so let's just say it's 9:27, let's just say, you don't have to be exact, but I'm just giving you a bit of an overview. That at that point is where you then would lower the pram if that's what you're doing, cover it over with, maybe pull the hood over. If you've got a muslin cloth or something breathable, you can even put that in front as well, because that can reduce the amount of light that comes in or even the stimulation level that you might see. Pop the white noise on. Now this is where ideally you've got some white noise on your phone that you could probably use, or even a portable white noise machine that you might want to have with you. And at that point, you might want to give your child their comforter if they're at an age where they can have a comforter. So, and now all those things combined will start to cue their body for nap time. And then with the motion that you're going to be doing, whether you're at the shops or out and about, the motion that you're going to be doing when you're pushing the pram is ideally then at that point going to get them over the line for that nap. So, and that's the thing, it all comes down to timing. There's nothing special that needs to happen for naps to occur on the go. It just really comes down to timing, and obviously to ensure that your little one is full and content prior to even trying for the nap in the first place. So that's quite important. It definitely comes down to ensuring that then, one, they're not laying down too early, and two, that you've got everything else lined up. So they're full, the timings are right, you're not laying down too early, you've got the white noise on, you've got the motion going, they've got their comforter if you've got one, and all those things together at the right time will hopefully give you a good nap. Now, once your little one is asleep, what you can then do is around the 35-40 minute mark, if you have sat down or you're at a coffee shop or you're doing something and the pram isn't moving at that point there and at between the 35-40 minute mark, I would start moving the pram back and forth, because that's when your baby at that point is going to go from one sleep cycle to another. Now, if you would like them to have a good nap, all you can do is try. There's no guarantees here, but all you can do is try and start moving that pram back and forth. You don't have to go doing laps around the shops. You don't have to go for a run anywhere at that time. All you need to do is move that pram back and forth to recreate the motion that they had when they fell asleep. And that might be enough to get them through to the next sleep cycle. That might give you another 40-45 minutes of sleep, maybe even longer. that's definitely my tips there when it comes to napping on the go. Now, in the event that you want to go out for the night, I often get asked this as well. How do you go out for dinner for the night or go to the in-laws' place for dinner when you've got a baby? Again, life goes on and these things prop up, and it's just, you just got to go with the flow at some point. In situations like this, I advise to do Bub's bath, and in some cases dinner, depending on how old Bub is, at home before you even leave. So if you've got to go somewhere by 5:30, 6 o'clock, everything comes forward at home first. So feed Bub around 4:30. You may even want to bath Bub as well in between that time. So then when you're at Nan or Pop's house or out for dinner, Bub's done. Although it was early, but done. Even put him in his pajamas and he can sit in the pram, or he can be at someone else's house, and done. And then when it's actually their actual bedtime, which might not be till 6:30, 7 o'clock, then you can give them their last milk feed of the night, breast, bottle, boob, whatever you're doing, and then pop them back in their pram and use motion to get them over the line to go to sleep. But by then, they've already been fed, they've already had their bath, they would have had their milk at their normal time, and then you can pop them in the pram to drift off and go to sleep, using motion to your advantage, of course, pushing them back and forth if you need to, using white noise if it's a different or noisy environment. And then what you'll probably find is when it's time to go home is where you can then experience some battles. So in the event that you get home, what you're likely to experience when you're out at the restaurant and you transfer from pram to car seat, it usually is quite successful because you're going from one motion to another. It's when you get home where the challenges can begin. You go from the car to the cot at home, and that's where they can then wake up and things can become quite challenging at that point. So at this point on, I recommend to redo your bedtime routine, but a brief bedtime routine. It doesn't need to be long and withdrawn, and it doesn't need to include nappy changes or baths or anything like that. It really only needs to be go from the car into the bedroom, offer another feed. Now, whether it's one side on the breast or 40 or 60 mils of milk in the bottle, it doesn't need to be a full feed. All we're trying to redo here is kind of re-establish a little bit of a bedtime behavioral habit where they get cozy, they get calm, they get a little feed. Whether they need it or not, it's not a big deal at this point. You can offer it. If they turn their nose up to it, don't worry. We don't want to force feed. That means they're not interested. But if they do have it, go for it. It's just going to help create that, sleeping association. So once they've finished that feed, pop them down in the cot, preferably awake, drowsy but awake. But again, at the end of the day, it's not the end of the world if they have fallen asleep on the breast or bottle at this time. It's, they've been tossed around a little bit, their routine's a little bit out of whack. You don't need to, at this point, wake them up to put them in the cot if they're fallen asleep on you or on the bottle at this point. It's not a deal breaker. It's a one-off. So don't feel like you're going to go backwards. Don't feel like it's going to undo any of the hard work that you've implemented to date. Don't feel like it's going to, ruin anything that you've already created. It's not. It's a one-off. These things happen. Everything's fixable. Everything can go back on track if you needed to. But in situations like this, these are really just one-offs, and these moments are okay for them to be like this. So look, I hope that helps. I hope it gives you a bit of an overview as to what to do in the event that you have to go out or you want to go out. I don't want parents to feel really restricted because their little ones don't sleep out. It can be hard and it can be restrictive, but it's not impossible to do and to create that. And it all comes down to practice. Once they've done it a few times, they understand the difference between sleeping in their cot and sleeping on the go. And you might not always get great naps on the go, but at the end of the day, as long as they're having a nap when they're going to be tired or when they fall asleep at bedtime when their bedtime is due, whether you're out and about, at home, in the pram, that's pretty much the number one thing to remember, especially when they're young. You really only need to go off their wake windows, not so much a structured time. So as long as they got the opportunity to fall asleep at those moments, that's better than not falling asleep at all, obviously, and then becoming really overtired. Yeah, like I said, I hope this helps. Please feel free to share this information with another mum or friend if you do find this helpful. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you in the next podcast.